Greetings, compatriots, and thank you for watching this edition of Meet the Candidate 2024. My name is Jonathan McLeese. I'm a compatriot from Admiral Raphael Sims Camp number 1321 out of Dearborn, Michigan. And I'm joined today with my co-host.
Nice to meet y'all. Cousin Vinny, some of you know me as, but Vinny Balducci, coming live from the northernmost southern state of New Jersey, representing Private Meredith Poole, Camp 1505, based in Hamilton, New Jersey.
Thank you so much, Vinny. And for the next little while, we'll be chatting with Terry Klima, a candidate running for councilman of the Army of Northern Virginia Department at the 2024 National Reunion of the Sons of Confederate Veterans in North Charleston, South Carolina, this upcoming July. Before we get started, I'm going to deliver the following disclaimer. This program and the views or opinions that follow are not authorized or endorsed by the Sons of Confederate Veterans at the national level, its General Executive Council, any Army departments, divisions, brigades, camps, or any other subsidiary of the SCV. This is simply a program made by SCV members for the benefit of the SCV membership, giving members an opportunity to see and hear from candidates running for offices in 2024 that have a position on the General Executive Council. And now, without further delay, let's bring on our guest. Thanks for coming on today, Terry. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. It's a great forum to have an opportunity to speak to everyone.
We really appreciate your time, sir. And so we're, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started.
Let's do it.
Excellent, excellent. Before we ask any questions, if you would, just briefly introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your background and your SCV credentials.
I've been a life member of the SCV. I joined in 2002. I previously served on the General Executive Council between 2016 and 2018 as a councilman for Army of Virginia. I've been the Maryland Division Commander for the past 8 years. I've served on the Sesquicentennial Commission. I was ANV Heritage Division Officer. And by way of professional background, I spent 40-some years in banking with a Fortune 500 bank with a concentration in finance and banking. I attended the Stonier Graduate School of Banking at Rutgers University. And I look forward to getting back onto the General Executive Council. I was there when the museum started. And of course, I'd like to get back there to see what we can do to get it done, to be honest with you. I think it's a great asset to the organization. But I would much rather have the debt eliminated, and at which point we can then start focusing our concentration on better exhibits, staffing, extended hours, etc. I think it's the last line of defense for our heritage, and hopefully the first line of offense as far as getting things heading in the right direction as far as our view of history. Absolutely,
and I love that. I love the focus on this is our main goal, and after we got to continue this. So you definitely have good goals, set up.
Thank you.
Well, go ahead, Vinny. You're an Army of Northern Virginia guy, so I'll let you throw out the first question.
All right, I'm excited. I was waiting for the okay. All right, so my first question is a pretty simple one. In about 2 minutes, could you please sum up your candidacy and the purpose for your running for your respective office?
Well, first of all, as councilman, your job is actually to be a liaison to the camps and the compatriots of the Army in Northern Virginia, and to represent them where possible, advancing their views where they're appropriate, and counseling where those views may not be appropriate, as sometimes we see. As I indicated, I have a very strong passion for the museum to see it come to completion. From an organizational standpoint, I do not like debt. As a banker, I don't like debt. It's just one of those things I think we need to focus on, try to get under control. And I think it can be eliminated. I think it's just a question we need a few more steps in the process as to how we should go about things. Heritage defense is also another one of my passions, and I look forward to becoming involved there wherever possible. And all in all, I just like to see the organization advance and contribute in any way I can.
That's fantastic. I mean, right there, you covered several bases that we were going to ask you about. You really summed up the function of the office that you seek, and you've talked about what qualifies you for the position. The topic that you've already just mentioned several times is finances and museum debt. And so along the terms of finances, what new and innovative ideas do you have to increase long-term revenue coming into the FCV?
Well, actually, whatever we can do to increase membership, I think is a start, because that does increase revenue. I think we have to look at some creative ways to do that. It would be nice if we could reach out to former members and get them back into the program. If you think about the NRA, some of the programs they have, they send you letters. You were a member. If you rejoin, we'll send you a penknife with their logo or the knapsack or whatever. I think that's one possibility. I'd like to see the cadet program reinvigorated. I'm not sure what we have in terms of how many cadets are continuing on when they hit age of 12 years old. Candidly, it's a tough stretch to go from $10, which many families can afford, up to the paying full dues at age of 12. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people drop out at that point. I'm not sure what we're doing to enhance the cadet experience. It depends on the camp. I'm not sure if we're doing anything really nationally to attract them. And theoretically, I suppose there's something that might be done that, we have SCV chat. Perhaps there could be something that would be directed towards a younger group, even younger than the millennials and the Generation X's and Z's or whatever they are. So I think that's one outreach we could do. I also think we ought to reach out to the homeschoolers, because in my experience, anytime we go to an event, if you talk to the public education kids, generally speaking, they're asking you questions about, what happened in World War II at the Battle of Gettysburg, et cetera. They're just so far off the map. Whereas the homeschoolers, oftentimes they know the history. They know what the war was about. They don't buy into the narrative that it was morality play over slavery. And I think that's an untapped market that we could reach out to. As far as other enhancements, we've got that campus at Elm Springs. I think there's probably some opportunities there to enhance revenue with perhaps weddings, venues, meetings, various things. I'm not sure what we have in the way of spaces, but perhaps there's even some opportunities to lease some of the land or lease some office space. There's any number of things that we can look into. And we have a number of properties other than Elm Springs. We have the Boyhood Home, and there's some other properties that we have that over the years have been donated, and I don't think we're really using them for any constructive purpose, and they're not necessarily related to history. They're not necessarily historical locations. We have one or two of those, but many of them are just building lots or lots within various cities. We could probably look into asset disposal of the things that really don't have any connection to the organization to raise cash.
Very innovative, smart. I like that, kind of doing an inventory, and I like how you are applying, your education, your profession, which is a pretty big asset. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit, only because when I started in this organization, one of the hardest things was figuring out what each title was, what each title did. So what even the AOT was, or the ANV. I didn't even know those terms when I started. So for those viewers that might not know, my question is, could you please define the function of the office you seek and what qualifies you for that position?
Well, as councilman, obviously the primary responsibility is to represent your constituents in the Army that you're a member of. In this case, it's the Army of Northern Virginia. You're going to represent your constituents as far as their issues at the compatriots in their camps. That's your primary role. But along with that, as a member of the GEC, you're involved in the corporate governance of the organization. I don't think people realize that we are a multi-million-dollar enterprise. I think sometimes we think too provincially, like we're this nice organization of a bunch of people that had Confederate ancestors, but we really don't realize how large a group of assets that the GEC controls. And I think it's important to have someone that has experience, particularly in the boardroom, because in effect, that's what we are as GEC members. We are effectively the board of directors of the national organization. So I think when it comes to that situation, communication skills are important. The ability to strategically think is important. Financial planning is extremely important. And I think, that lesson has more or less shown itself over the course of the past, I suppose, approximately 10 years from the time that the museum was a vision to the present day. So
I love that example as a board member too. That's a cool, a good analogy.
And obviously you're 100% right. When I joined, and for quite a while, I had no clue exactly what all the SCV had under its umbrella, and the amount of assets and things like that it had to take care of, and the financial responsibilities that go along with all of that. You mentioned, also the importance of communications. And for years, there has been discussion about improving communications in the SCV. If elected, how would you propose changing communications for the better?
I think we could probably use social media more. We might use a platform very similar to what you're using here or what they use in SCV chat. I don't know why we couldn't have some GEC meetings that would be basically on this particular type of platform so members could see what's going on. I think a lot of times when people are frustrated, it's because they don't know all the behind the scene details. Now, obviously in a GEC meeting, there's certain things that can't be discussed. You have disciplinary issues, and there's other issues that come up that's handled in executive session. But, the more mundane more mundane, regular activities, certainly I think it would be good for the membership to be exposed to it. And I think there's probably some opportunities for training programs, theoretically, something maybe directed towards the cadets. They could tune in once a month or something and have some background or historical lessons or whatever on their heritage. That's certainly one thing. I know when I was serving on the GEC the last time, we used to publish minutes of the GEC meetings. And I thought that was very helpful because, what people don't see, what they don't know, they start making assumptions. And oftentimes that leads to, various inappropriate conclusions. And I think the more information that you can provide people, the better.
Without a doubt, and I like that, elaborating more on, everybody being on the same page. And my next question goes on that. So it's with communication, there could be times where people don't understand a point of view, or where there's potentially a little bit of drama. What, in your opinion, is the number one thing that we can do to bring the membership together and prevent division?
Well, I think we really should look at everything from the perspective of the charge. I think if we do that, that's a good start. Are we defending? Are we vindicating the cause for which they fought? Are we emulating the principles? I think if we look at everything from the spectrum of the charge, that's going to get everybody theoretically on the same page. And then from there, I think it's important that we articulate our goals and our objectives. And sometimes I think we need to do a better job of doing that to take out, eliminate some of the confusion and people going off in multiple directions, because communication is very important. And you have to, really drill down on it, let people know what the concept is and what your thoughts are and where you're trying to take it. Otherwise, there's too much interpretation that takes place. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion, sometimes the divisiveness comes into play.
Without a doubt. Absolutely.
And, you go on and you have communication and you start getting everybody on the same page. And, the next thing that really needs to happen is you need to have effective teamwork. And I was going to ask, how do you define effective teamwork within the SCV?
No, it's interesting. In the Maryland division, we have an expression: there is no I in team. And I think, first of all, we have to really get past the personalities of the individuals and everybody pull in the same direction. I mean, it's very simple. It's the way the world goes around, and I think that's a starting point as far as the getting everybody working as a team. And again, it gets back into clearly articulated goals so that everybody's on the same page. Hopefully we all can put our personalities aside and understand that we're doing this for the benefit of the organization, not, personal gain or acclamation or award.
I love that. I love the Maryland touch, that there, as Maryland, there is no, I in team, that really focusing on, we have to work together. We got to lead this charge. And you definitely have a lot of innovation. So going along with that, my next question is, if you would please give us an example of a time when you solved a problem you were faced with using your own initiative or out of the box thinking.
At a very young age, I was diagnosed as always coloring outside of the lines, Vinny. So you'll appreciate this as with your background. But I do like to think outside the box. I suppose one good example is there was a Grace Episcopal Church in Rockville, Maryland. There were 17 Confederates buried there. They had a grave marker during one of the Juneteenth Black Lives Matter weekends. The monument was torn down. It was donated by Confederate veterans, and the church's position was, since it had been vandalized, since it was spray painted and knocked down, it was basically an obelisk. They were going to destroy the monument and replace it with some type of nondescript mark of some sort. We asked that we could have, obviously, the monument. They said no. Someone mentioned years ago that at the University of Pennsylvania archives, they have the Confederate veterans going back to, Confederate veteran magazines going back to, I believe, 1893 through 1932. And someone mentioned at one of the conventions of the Confederate veterans, and I believe it was in 1892, I believe that's correct. In their charter and bylaws, they indicated that once they cease existence, that they're donating all of their assets to the Sons of Confederate Veterans, which is interesting because the Confederate veterans really weren't even established until 1896. So, there's a disconnect there. But actually, we got copies of the original documents, presented them to the church, and indicated that we were, in fact, the legal title owner of that monument since it was donated by the United Confederate Veterans. And they finally agreed, provided us the monument, and we had that taken down to Point Lookout and relocated on private property. And it's a beautiful monument. We got the paint taken off, and that was a very positive experience for us. And that was one example of thinking outside the box. We also, as I mentioned, we file a lot of Maryland Public Information Act requests, and these are things that are available to virtually all the states. Sometimes they call them Freedom of Information Act requests, but they're very helpful in these heritage battles. And I know Matthew McGugan down in North Carolina, I know he was pleased to learn about them. And I know some of the other compatriots in the ANV are starting to file these and keep some of these locations, jurisdictions, I should say, on the ball as far as getting various documents and finding out what the actual title is to these monuments and the background and ownership, et cetera. So those are a couple of examples.
And that's a beautiful memorial. I had the honor of visiting that Point Lookout Park, which that in of itself is very innovative with Maryland and all their contributions. And that memorial was so humbling and beautiful that it was saved. It's heartbreaking what happened, but at least it's okay. It's not been, trashed.
Exactly. So, yeah.
I thought that was very interesting to hear the ways that you have used that out of the box thinking and gotten some things done. It's a critical skill, and it's important for anybody who's going to be in a high position in any organization to have. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and ask you a question, a little bit about not so much membership, but outside of the membership and outside of what's already going on in national community and reaching out to the community around us. How do you support the SCV being involved in community service projects, helping those outside of the SCV? If yes, what ideas do you have for doing so? And if no, please tell us about why.
No, I clearly support it. I think it's the success of it's really geared to the local geographic jurisdiction where you're living. I think in more rural areas, you can have more success with it than essentially my camp's outside of a major metropolitan area, urban area. So we've done some things in the past with law enforcement officers in terms of giving them awards, et cetera. And now with the current state of political correctness, we're finding more and more that people are shying away from any involvement with the SCV per se, particularly where you could get some, I suppose, recognition in the community. The camps currently, obviously do things for families at Christmas time. That's something that's still widely received, but of course that's somewhat different because there you're gearing down on a particular family, and they're very grateful to have that type of assistance. Trying to think. Interestingly enough, we at one point thought we would try to really do something somewhat radical. We actually contacted Baltimore City and decided to try to reach out in terms of negotiating for getting the Confederate monuments to be preserved. We actually offered a scholarship to a deserving inner city student that would major in history, at a community college. And, it was a fairly sizable amount of money that we were offering to endow this scholarship. You would have thought that somebody would have said, hey, that's a great idea. But actually, since we were Confederate, it was like the request was essentially denied. So that didn't work for us, but we tried. But so wherever possible, where you can get community support and do these things, I think it's a great idea. But I think, mileage will vary depending upon where you're located. And I think that's the reality of the situation.
Apparently our money's not green.
That's right. It's Confederate gray. That's what they're saying.
You can't make this stuff up.
Well, that's been a huge thing because, these wonderful organizations, all the heritage organizations usually do some kind of scholarship. And now what they're doing is the new form of cancel culture is to trying to pull scholarships from any heritage group that they don't agree with. I've seen that on popular media, on TV shows. It's ridiculous. So kind of going along the lines of that, to the question that John asked, when we're out with the public, when we're doing, community service or a project, how important is it for the SCV to be explaining what we stand for when out in public?
Oh, I think it's critical. It's terribly critical because we're really like one of the few voices that's explaining, the basis of our heritage, the causes of the war, pointing out the hypocrisy of many of these popular views that the war was a morality play over slavery. Some of the things that these politicians are saying, because, more often than not, they just love taking shots at the South, at the Confederacy. One expression I can't stand is when people say things went south. I always say things went north. And
that's right.
I think most Southerners don't necessarily realize that was a derisive term or expression. And I don't know why we go along with it. We shouldn't do it. But, here again, it's an opportunity to educate the public. Going south was an expression that was used when soldiers would, oftentimes in Maryland, would cross over, into Virginia and serve the Confederate Army. And I think it's just one more opportunity wherever possible, we have to get our message across.
Well, as someone who lives here in the North, I know when things are going good, I say things are going south.
And you may well do that. South is a state of mind, okay? It's not necessarily a geographic region.
That's right. That's right. I guess I'm responsible for sort of taking the direction away from SCV internally, so I'm going to bring it back in a little bit, but still a little bit outside too. What are your thoughts about the associate membership program at the camp level and the Friends of the SCV program nationally?
Well, I've had very positive experience at the camp level with the associate members. In particular, we had an associate member in 1996 before many of us were even aware of the legislature trying to take away the Maryland state song. He and his son went down there and defended the song. And of course, that was before it was really where all the politicians were jumping on the bandwagon. But I mean, associate members can be very, very valuable to the camps. And, I'm fully in favor of it. I think oftentimes they're unsung heroes. So as far as the associate membership of the camps is concerned, I'm a big supporter. As far as friends of the camp, I have no objection to it. I think we just have to be careful how we vet some of the folks, because at the camp level, you can vet who you're letting into your camp to make sure that you're getting the people in for the right purpose, and they have no other agenda, so to speak. And actually, we've had one person try to get into our camp as an associate who was actually a reporter who was actually trying to do some nefarious behind the scenes, find out that we were, I don't know what he was trying to find out, but we soon found out about that. And of course, we parted company. But as far as the friends is concerned, I think we just have to be careful about that. All the friends are on the same program, that we as members have to buy into, in terms of, obviously that we're in the organization for the right reasons, and we don't have any racial proclivities or any of those types of things that would, embarrass the organization.
Well said, especially about vetting. You got to do it. And I liked how, checking to make sure they're not a reporter, because that's something that's very real in this day and age. People will do everything, for that 5 minutes of fame or something, just to tarnish an organization. So, kind of going along the lines of these, associate members, regular members, are members' views and thoughts in the direction of the SCV important to you, and why? And how much do you value the concerns of the membership?
Oh, I think you have to give extreme amount of importance to the views of the membership. Without the membership, you really don't have an organization, or certainly an effective organization. You might have some bodies on a piece of paper that they call themselves members, but you're not going to get the best out of them if they know that you don't appreciate their views and their thoughts and their actions. Obviously, sometimes you have to counsel the members, because as we sometimes see, membership views can sometimes go off on tangents, and you can't do everything that all the members want to do all the time. But I think you certainly can give them respect and listen to them, and wherever possible, address their concerns and point out perhaps some things that they may not have given thought to, and get everybody on the same page.
Absolutely, yes, sir. A little bit ago, when you opened up, you started and you talked about the office and the position that you're running for. Vinny asked you to define it a little more clear. The next question is going to sound a little similar, but really it's different, because it's not so much about defining. If you were to win this upcoming election, what is the title of Councilman of the Army of Northern Virginia? What does that title mean to you?
That's an interesting question. I think as far as titles, I've never been one that was particular about having titles. I think about the Arlington Monument. What is it? No, not for fame or reward. If we're chasing a title, we're going about this for the wrong reason. Now, another perspective on that is, if you get the title, I suppose that means that your compatriots have confidence in your abilities. And I think that's a very positive thing. But as far as having the quote unquote title merely for the sake of the title, I'm not motivated by titles. Let's put it that way. I think you're more motivated by your ability to have that office and serve the national organization, if that makes sense. And I'm not sure the context, if that was the context you were asking the question.
No, you know what? This is really the kind of question that's more just about how you perceive it, I suppose. And every candidate, will answer that question maybe differently or the same. But no, it was a great answer. Absolutely.
It sure was. And let's say you win this election, you win this office position, and If elected, what are your goals and objectives for the first year?
Well, obviously the General Executive Council, there's a number of members, and, obviously I would be one person out of a number. I think your first objective is just to work as cooperatively as possible to advance the overall benefit of the organization. Now, saying that, I think you all know I do have a passion for that museum, and I do have a passion for heritage. And perhaps internally, I've got some goals or things I'd like to accomplish. But realistically, as a one-member person on a board of directors, you have to work cooperatively with the others, and you can't necessarily force your singular agenda. So I think working in cooperation with everyone and seeing what we can do to advance the organization would be my answer.
That's absolutely right. You're 100% correct on that. And to follow up in the same direction that Vinny just took us, how would you determine or evaluate overall success for the position that you're running for?
Very simply, as Robert E. Lee say, if you do your duty in all things and you do it properly, you can't ask for more than that.
I see that. I'm a man of quotes, and I think you picked one of my top five favorite quotes from the generals. I have one with Stonewall that somebody else had mentioned. That one was up there, and I think that absolutely is so true. One of my next ones, because I know you have a lot of skill. You have a lot of good experience in finance, which is a very critical skill, especially for those. I'm not good at math. A lot of us aren't good at math. That's probably why we did different careers. What important skill would you use to accomplish goals in the position that you're running for?
Well, obviously, communication skills, I think, are vital. Not only verbal skills, but the ability to write. Obviously, you're going to be conversing with compatriots in various fashions. Some's going to call you. Some are going to be putting emails or whatever. So certainly, I think communication skills are vital, and also having a good working understanding of how the organization works, including the GEC, from the camp level up through the division, through the Army of Northern Virginia, all the way up to national. I think that's vitally important as well. And I've served in virtually all those chairs at this point in time, so I think that experience would be helpful as well.
Well, Terry, we really appreciate you coming on, and we have flown through the list of questions. This is the fastest interview we've done.
Yes, it is. You set a record. You set a new record by a long shot.
I only have one more question on the list, and I don't think it's going to be a killer either. But just how do you stay current with the latest developments in the SCV?
Well, obviously, the Telegraph, reading the Confederate Veteran, SCV chat. I'm on a lot of blogs. I'm on a lot of Facebook pages with other camps and some kindred organizations. So I try to keep in touch with all these groups and keep up to date on all the latest accomplishments. And it's funny that you talk about blowing through the interview or going very fast or answering the questions. Most people that know me say I'm a bullet type guy. I love bullets where you just kind of say it short, sweet, concise, and don't necessarily just drag it out. So I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but that seems to be one of my ways of operating. So.
Well, with that being the last question, we're going to close out the program. And again, I want to thank you, Terry, for being willing to come on with us to speak with me and Vinny, to speak to the membership of the SCV through the program, particularly those within the Army of Northern Virginia Department, and to give everyone an opportunity to see and hear from one of the candidates that they'll have an opportunity to vote for if they're in the ANV at the SCV National Reunion. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we close?
No, I just think this was a great forum. I had a great time. It was very easy to converse with you all. It was a lot of fun, actually. So, if nothing else, I would appreciate it if everybody would vote for me. But that's,
Oh, well, thank you again, Terry. And thank you to everyone that's watching. I hope that this helps you, the viewer, be a more informed voter when we meet as a band of brothers later this summer at the National Reunion. On behalf of our producers and my co-host here, compatriot Vinny Balducci from Private Meredith Pool Camp 1505 out of Hamilton, New Jersey, and compatriot Dennis Palmer, who's a producer out of Secession Camp number 4, Charleston, South Carolina. My name is Jonathan McLeese from Admiral Raphael Semmes Camp 1321 out of Dearborn, Michigan. And thank you all for joining us again for this edition of Meet the Candidate 2024. God bless you. God bless Dixie. Deo Vendice.
Deo Vendice, y'all.